Hello, dear ones. Today I'm going to talk about a topic that I've never talked about in any of these videos. It occasionally comes up in conversation in a community setting because it's one of those things like, would everybody please wash their dishes before they, leave the kitchen? Or, it's just sort of one of these reminder kind of topics. But the topic is gossip. And I read a study recently that intrigued me. This was a study, strangely, that found scientific justification for gossip from an evolutionary standpoint. And I will digress momentarily to say that these studies that find justification on an evolutionary basis often, to my mind, are sort of like going through the world like this. And I only see what's straight ahead of me. No, there's nothing to my left. No, nothing to my right. Meaning, if we pick up evolution from the perspective that it's all about survival and nothing else, nothing more, just survival, then the justification that was suggested for gossip is that those who have the social connections to find out what's going on, kind of what bad thing happened to which person, they're suggesting that from an evolutionary standpoint, those people have a better prognosis of survival going forward because they know more than other people and therefore can avoid issues or problems in the future. To me, that's a little bit of a tortured explanation or justification for it. However, I'll just say that at least somebody thinks that out there in the big world from a scientific point of view. I will pick it up from the spiritual side, which is to say there's a whole lot more to existence than survival. I think all of us watching this video can probably say, I have survived until today. I have made it. Here I am. I'm watching the video. By definition, I have survived. Would survival be enough to sort of justify our existence or to fulfill our potential existence? I don't think so. To me, that's kind of lame. So anyway, all of that is to say, from a spiritual standpoint, what gossip does is it pulls the energy down. It pulls the energy in a group context down because it is divisive. It immediately gossip sort of by definition means there's more than one person involved because there's at least two people who are talking, saying something about somebody who's not there. That's my definition of gossip. And the something is not complimentary. It may be factual. It may be that something is being repeated that is in fact happening, that is real on a certain level. However, it's pulling the energy down because it is presented in a judgmental way, as if to say, oh, but see, I'm better than that, or we're better than that. We don't do that. See, that poor person is doing X, Y, or Z, or they had this bad thing happen to them, or see how stupid they were about whatever it might be. And that, by its very nature, sort of removes our own native dignity, our own, because we just do the math for a moment. If I say something about somebody who's not in the room, and I say it in a judgmental way, as if to say, that person just isn't very good, or that person isn't very nice, or that person, they had it coming. On some level, it's like it divides me from them, and it pulls my energy down on a certain level to that level. And then if we think, again, doing the math, we think, okay, now I've said that sort of thing about somebody. Well, sooner or later, I'm going to attract that same kind of thing where somebody's going to say something about me. You know, I've often thought when I've been around people for whom that is a habit, who will habitually speak about somebody else, I will often think, so, and you kind of expect me to trust that you won't turn around and do that to me? That doesn't leave me with a very comfortable, warm, fuzzy feeling inside. And similarly, if I do it, well, people are going to think that I'm not very trustworthy. If I speak that way behind somebody's back, then they're going to think, well, why wouldn't they say that about me? You know, it reminds me of the phrase from Autobiography of a Yogi, Sri Yukteswar's observation, kind of a humorous observation, but he said some people try to appear tall by cutting other people's heads off. And, you know, you think, my God, you know, why do we need to be so tall in life by means of taking other people's heads off? All that does is promote our own ego, our own sense, which, going back to the scientific question, you know, from the scientific standpoint, well, yeah, ego is about survival. Okay, fine, sure, it is. But ego is not about higher fulfillment. Ego is good to a point. Boosting the ego is fine up to a certain point. It's fine to praise little Johnny when he's learning to tie his shoe, or when he's learning to ride his bike or roller skate or do something. You know, Johnny, how good you are. And, you know, little Johnny's very proud. And it's all fine and well. It's just that when little Johnny is in his 50s or his 70s or 80s or something, and he's still wanting that, then you sort of think, well, gosh, you know, let's grow up. Let's grow beyond that. And we have to turn the headlights on ourselves. Because, see, Swamiji, being around him and watching his way of interacting with people, he needed to know what was happening with people. He needed that information. But he didn't like it if it was presented in that kind of way. And he wouldn't take part in that. His interest was a compassionate interest. His interest was not to pull somebody down. And he never repeated stuff like that. It just wasn't in his nature. If somebody told him a confidence, he would hold it. He would sometimes hold it for years or decades. I mean, it just, unless there was an urgent need to share it with someone who could help, who would help, that was the difference. Then the information would get passed on. But it was not, at that point, it was information, and it was not to pull the energy down. It was to raise the energy up and to actually help. It's interesting that in the guidelines for Ananda members, there's a phrase about that it is disloyal to sort of talk around the edges about, to criticize around the edges about whatever's going on in the organizational level, and not take that to someone who can do something about it. If there's a complaint, if there's an issue, you take it to someone who could actually help to resolve it and fix it, rather than talking at a low level that just sort of stirs up dust. It's like it stirs up a little small commotion, tempest in a teapot is one way that could be phrased. And it doesn't do anything to help actually solve the problem. If there's an issue that somebody's having, and some of us are aware of that issue, then it's incumbent on us to actually try to help, not to just talk around about, that person and be judgmental about it and sarcastic or cynical about it, but rather to say, how can I help? Because that requires energy. That requires effort. That requires that we move our own energy up to meet a challenge. And I've been around people who just would not gossip. You could not coax a ill word about someone else out of them. They did not have it in them. I find that deeply inspiring, deeply ennobling. That's the kind of person that I would trust, that I would instinctively want to trust, because they are putting out the energy to not sort of draw the group energy down, not create us and them, or us and her, or us and him, that sort of energy. It just doesn't help. So I say all of those things to give a perspective, because it's easy to just go, well, don't gossip. Well, the reason people gossip is because it makes them feel good on a certain level. It's just that then it leaves a very unclean feeling afterwards. We kind of want to take a shower. We want to wash that off. Swamiji, with a very keen, observant way, said, when people say something mean or unkind about someone, they'll often sort of chuckle afterwards in a kind of self-conscious way. It's not a real laugh. It's sort of a kind of thing, and it doesn't express the heart. It's like, ooh, I know I said something I probably shouldn't have, and now I have to, sort of deal with the discomfort of that inside, and so I'll sort of chuckle and see if I can get you to chuckle, and then maybe we'll all feel a little bit better. Let's don't go there. It's really, really important to the group energy not to, but just even on an individual level. Even if it was just you and another person talking about a third person, then the two of you know that about each other. And it's an icky feeling to sort of share that. And it's just nicer not to. And mostly on an inner level, we want to be able to give our love to God. And that means we have to serve God and each other. And to do that means it requires energy and devotion and commitment. And those things preclude gossip. They just won't allow it. So let's try to live in that kind of uplifted way to where it just doesn't even come up. It's not even psychically an option. Namaste.